All over the world, archaeologists often make discoveries that can be surprising and intriguing at the same time. In Africa, for example, these specialists have come across treasures that have perplexed them and for which they do not always have explanations to give us. Do you know what they found in Kenya, South Africa, Morocco, and Zimbabwe? Then stay with us until the end of this video to see the terrifying discoveries in Africa that nobody can explain. Let's get started. Let me tell you about a blue-colored stone that was discovered in Sierra Leone in 1990 by a certain Angelo Pettoni, a geologist of Italian origin. The history of the stone will certainly intrigue you, but you will be even more fascinated when you have an idea of its alleged origin. Well, this pretty stone, which as you can see has a beautiful blue color, is not only pretty, but it is also very, very old, and particularly light. In fact, according to the analyses that have been carried out in a number of laboratories around the world, this stone is composed of about 77% oxygen, while the rest is made up of carbon, calcium, and an unknown material. What do you think it is? You don't have the answer, of course, and you're not the only one. The many scientists and specialists who have studied this stone closely are unaware of its true composition, and therefore they know nothing about its origin. For them, it cannot be a terrestrial stone, but rather a stone of celestial origin. A meteorite remnant, for example? Maybe so, but for those who believe in paranormal phenomena, this stone, which has been called Sky Stone, certainly has extraterrestrial origins. It would even constitute the tangible proof that extraterrestrials would have made a small visit in Africa thousands and thousands of years ago. You're familiar with Stonehenge, but you will be surprised to learn that there is another site in Africa that is just as remarkable and even more curious. Do you want to know more? Let's go to West Africa, more precisely to the border between Senegal and Gambia, where the civilization that populated this place elaborated one of the most intriguing and fascinating archaeological wonders in the world: megalithic stone circles. Located in Senegambia, these large groups of circles that extend over 350 kilometers long and 100 kilometers wide are made up of more than 1,000 monuments, including tumuli, that is to say, funerary mounds where rich and important people were buried, as well as stones carved into columns that measure an average of 2 meters high and weighed up to 7 tons. Thanks to the excavations that were carried out, experts discovered archaeological material that could be dated between the 3rd century BC and the 16th century AD. Moreover, the studies revealed that the stones were extracted with iron tools. The most fascinating thing is that the megalithic circles of Senegambia have allowed us to have a clearer idea of the society that lived there at the time and to understand its degree of organization. But above all, this site has made it possible to discover the different objects that were buried with the bodies and to show how prosperous the civilization was. Isn't it interesting, all that? Of course, the stone circles of Senegambia are on the UNESCO World Heritage List and have been since 2006. South Africa is not only home to wildlife reserves, penguin beaches, or diamond mines. This country, located at the southmost point of the African continent, also has archaeological treasures. But there's one that fascinates all those who make a discovery. By the way, this site belongs to the University of the Witwatersrand in Johannesburg, which allows scientists to continue their research and studies there regularly. By the way, do you know on what these studies are conducted? On fossils, that's right. We're talking about the Sterkfontein Caves, a cave system that was discovered by chance in the late 1890s and is considered one of the richest fossil sites in the world. In fact, the fossils found in the Sterkfontein Caves are believed to be more than 4 million years old and represent the birth of mankind, as evidenced by the thousands of stone tools that have been found there. It is therefore only natural that this site continues to be the subject of paleontological excavations and that it now attracts a large number of tourists and fossil enthusiasts. Scientists often make surprising discoveries while exploring a given area. In Africa, for example, there is no shortage of surprising discoveries. But if there is something that has intrigued researchers for a very long time, it is what they have discovered on the island of Anjouan, an island located off the east coast of Africa. Well, this island, which is supposedly the result of a volcano, is not only made of volcanic rocks, but it is also home to a rock that is not supposed to be there. It is quartzite, a kind of rock that forms from sandstone and that is usually found in a riverbed or a delta, but never on a volcano. Except that this rock was found on this island in the middle of the ocean to the great amazement of researchers. What moved these rocks to this island? Mystery. No one knows how these quartzite rocks ended up there, despite the studies that are constantly being conducted to research their origin. Perhaps the day will come when scientists will finally find the answer to their many questions, but in the meantime, these quartzite rocks are the delight of the islanders who use them as tools to sharpen their knives, for example. Berenice is an ancient Egyptian port, 2,000 years old and located in the southwest of Egypt. Apart from the role it played, this ancient pharaonic city had a particularity that distinguished it from many other cities. You would like to know that, wouldn't you? But let me tell you, you won't believe it because even the scientists who visited the area were very surprised by this discovery. Well, to satisfy your ever-growing curiosity, I'll tell you right now what made Berenice special and unlike any other city at that time. This ancient Egyptian port was home to a cemetery for animals. No, we're not talking about tombs of mummified animals or buried after being sacrificed for some ritual, but about a cemetery where cats and dogs were buried by their masters after their natural death, with necklaces and other jewelry, pieces of pottery and textiles to protect them. Scientists who excavated this ancient cemetery also discovered that the animals were buried in individual graves and that some of them showed signs of disease and were treated by humans. Whoa, this proves that pets have been around for a very long time. There are many sites in the world whose architecture has always seduced archaeologists. But did you know that the African continent also has a real architectural treasure? Before giving you the name and the place of this site, look at these pictures. This is Doki Gel, an archaeological site located in Sudan, in what was ancient Nubia. Its architecture with circular patterns is, however, of a complexity that has long intrigued archaeologists specializing in Sudan. For this reason, a joint Swiss-French-Sudanese mission conducted studies for several months to better understand what made the site both imposing and impressive. What is certain is that the Egyptians had a lot to do with this exceptional architecture. Kenya is not only a land of safaris, and its name is not only linked to the lions and the Maasai tribe. This country is home to another mysterious wonder that will certainly leave you speechless when you find out what it is. In the coastal town of Kilifi is a forest that houses the ruins of an ancient city called Getty, known as the Ruins of Getty. This rich archaeological site was discovered in 1884 by John Kirk, a British resident of Zanzibar. Since that time, the mystery still hangs over this ancient Kenyan city that housed mosques, houses, and even a palace because no one knows where its inhabitants have gone. Of course, this has given rise to several theories and hypotheses to explain the possible reason why the inhabitants of Getty deserted their town during the 17th century. Some argue that it was destroyed by invaders, while others have suggested that the receding waters of the Indian Ocean forced the inhabitants to abandon their town to find water elsewhere. Another hypothesis suggests that the Black Death, brought by Portuguese explorers, killed all the inhabitants. However, the lack of evidence to support either hypothesis means that the mystery of this ancient city still hangs in the air, and we may never know exactly what happened to the inhabitants of Getty. If I ask you which are the oldest written languages in the world, you will answer without hesitation Greek and Chinese. You might think so, but the truth is that there are much older written languages than those you just mentioned. Some of them even date back to prehistoric times. So, to correct your answer, you should know that specialists in writing and written languages have discovered that the oldest writings in the world come straight from Africa. That's right. These writings have been found in ancient Nubia, Ethiopia, Nigeria, Liberia, and many other African countries. The most disturbing thing for these archaeologists was, however, to notice that the African continent also possessed the largest collection of written languages in the world, which testified to its great civilization, well before the arrival of Westerns. Now we're heading to Morocco, in North Africa, to tell you about the surprising discovery that archaeologists made a few years ago. While working in the Bismoon cave in the southwest of the country, these researchers came across objects that they estimated to be 142,000 and 150,000 years old. Do you know what they are? Jewelry, the oldest in the world. These jewels were made from shells and would have been created by a population that excelled in jewelry making. This population would even be at the origin of the first jewels manufactured in the world. Made by hand using fine tools, these ancient jewels also had holes intended to introduce a string. The scientists estimated, moreover, that these jewels were not only carried like ornaments, but that they were also used as means to reveal its identity. The African continent is undoubtedly a land rich in archaeological treasures, and it seems that researchers have not yet finished with the amazing discoveries. Recently in Zimbabwe, a team of scientists made a surprising discovery that they never expected to make. To give you an idea, this thing was named Mbirisaurus rathi and was quite gigantic, if we dare say so. You have guessed it, haven't you? That's right, we're talking about a dinosaur, and not just any dinosaur. Indeed, the scientists have just discovered the oldest dinosaur in Africa. According to the studies that were conducted by the scientists, and according to their estimates, the Mbirisaurus rathi would have lived on our planet more than 230 million years ago. It has even been described as a two-legged dinosaur with a long neck and a height of 1 meter. Isn't that incredible? If you are ever in Zimbabwe, you can see its nearly complete skeleton at the Natural History Museum. And now look closely at this picture. Obviously, you may think that this is another treasure that was unearthed during an archaeological dig somewhere in Africa. Wrong, this is neither an archaeological treasure nor an extraterrestrial object. Do you see these small round objects piled up inside this capsule? Well, that's a cluster bomb. If you don't know what that means, then it's a large bomb that contains several small bombs, which are scattered over very large areas. Unfortunately, these bombs have been dropped over many countries, including South Sudan. Sometimes they fail to explode, posing a real threat to children or to farmers working their land. The use of these bombs is now strongly condemned by African leaders. Now, tell us in the comments, have you ever heard of other amazing and fascinating discoveries in Africa? Tell us about it. Don't forget to subscribe and click here to watch another of our videos.